It's usually Sam Cowan, but as you can see, this is not Sam Cowan. But we are continuing in the same genre, talking to people about their life experiences and seeing what we can maybe get out of them as well. The guest on this, episode 9 of the series, is a well-known media personality, Tracey, who went through a brutal attack on her by one of her former partners. This is Beautiful Mary. The scary part is when you start a conversation by discussing the age of your children and going, I don't believe she's that old, I don't believe he's that old.
It means we've been around for a while, doesn't it?
Time moves on, doesn't it?
It does, and lovely to be sitting here opposite you after all these years.
It's lovely to see you again, Tracey, and looking just as gorgeous as you always have been.
Oh, I don't know, but
No.
thank you.
No, just take the compliments.
Take it, I'll take it,
Exactly.
I'll take it.
Let's just go back, because there are probably a lot of people who would recognise the face and recognise the name, but go, where do I know that from? Where do I get irritated? How did you get into the media stream?
Gosh, that is a long time ago. I remember one of the DJs on Metro FM saying to me, come and read news to me on my show. Mm-hmm. And I rushed along and went and read the news on his show, and he said, yeah, please, stay with us. And that was the start of my radio career, and then it was TV, and then of course I think the last big stint was doing the breakfast show, Morning Live, for years on SABC2.
How long did you do Morning Live for?
I think it was about 4 or 5 years, but I'd done breakfast shows like you as well for about 12 years, doing radio and then moving to TV.
People don't understand what it is like getting up that early in the morning.
I think it's always about sleep. It's how much sleep, how little sleep, when you're going to sleep, when you're not going to sleep. Always tired. I don't think you're ever not tired.
Yeah, I think the most difficult part for me is waking my brain up.
Okay.
I think of people who have what we would call a normal job, who wake up at maybe 6 in the morning and they get into work by 8 and they're performing at peak by 9. They've had 3 hours to do that. But when you're waking up at 4:30 and you've got to be performing at peak at 6, an hour and a half later, you've got to wake yourself up. How did you wake yourself up?
No, I think I sort of trained myself over the years. You could have woken me up in the middle of the night and I could have read the news to you as though I'd been awake for hours. I think I trained. I think you do. You sort of just go, the red light comes on, you're like, okay, I'm here.
Okay, but then moving from radio into television is a huge move, especially morning television, because then it's makeup and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So those are really early hours.
Yeah, but I'd been on TV for a very long time before I did morning. In fact, I even remember reading the news on the very last Good Morning South Africa show, and I mean that was on air for about 20 years. Yeah. So I'd done various business programs, evening news, magazine programs. So it was, and I'd done morning radio, so I got used to sort of waking up, although I'm not a morning person. And I think that was part of it.
You lie.
No, I'm not a morning person. Never have been, never will be. So
Yet you worked for so many years doing morning television and radio.
And never slept through the night because I was always terrified I was going to oversleep.
What are the other fears you have?
What other fears?
Fear of not waking up?
Yeah. And I think that stayed with me. I'm not really a fearful person, I don't think.
Aren't you?
No, I don't think it's something I think about.
Are you tough?
Yeah, I'm pretty resilient. I think as I get older, I'm less resilient. But certainly resilience is a word that I would use for myself.
When you face problems, how do you overcome them then? What's your defense mechanism?
I don't know. I'm not really one of those people who sees things as problems.
Ah.
It's just like, you just sort of get on with it, don't you? And you just work your way through things, maybe. I don't ever think you get over things. I think you sort of just systematically work your way through things.
Have you always just been this positive?
Yeah, I have. And as I've got older and you realize that life is really too short, I get up in the morning and I think, gee, it's a beautiful day. I know it sounds a bit boring, doesn't it?
No, it sounds absolutely wonderful. I wish there were more people like you on the planet. It'd be a better place to live in.
Don't you wake up in the morning and say, wow?
I do, yeah. I generally do.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it comes with the territory that we work in?
I think so. I think we have to be inherently positive because otherwise we're going to go out there and we're going to do a bad job.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of jobs, what are you doing with your life now? Let's hop right ahead and then I want to come back. What are you doing with your life now?
At the moment, the last few years have really been focused on the book that I've written, Brutal Legacy.
Yeah.
It was a book that I'd sort of been thinking about writing for many years, and always a little bit uncertain as to whether I wanted to do it, whether I wanted people to know so much about me. But then I did, I think when Oscar murdered Reeva, it was the thing for me that I thought, okay, now's the time to write a book and give insight into what happens in a home of domestic violence. And I sat down and I wrote the book, and I thought I would be busy with the book, but I never anticipated quite how big the demand was, you know, to be in places and to talk about it and to share your story. So that has been time consuming.
Okay.
And wonderfully so.
Yeah. Let's go back to, because we needed to get to this point at some stage, to the Brutal Legacy. What happened there?
Well, I mean, it was a short-lived relationship, and it was just in a matter of months, really, that the first signs of violence were there: the slamming of doors, the kicking the dog, the underlying threat that you're next. And of course, I was next. And there was a night where he held me hostage for about 9.5 hours. And following that, I got a restraining order. And about 3 weeks after that, he arrived at my house and he beat me up. So the book is the story of that. And then, of course, I also draw. I couldn't write a book without talking about the home that I come from, because I grew up in a home with a very violent father. And I was able to sort of draw parallels, similarities, and really sort of explore the story. I would never find answers. I'm never going to be able to categorically say, well, it's because of where I came from that I ended up in a relationship like that. Because a lot of women haven't come from that and find themselves in a situation like that. So the book was an opportunity to possibly explore that. I don't think you ever have answers, but it's sometimes good to ask questions.
Were there drugs or alcohol involved in this?
There was in this particular case, and I think there very often is, but that's not an excuse, because there are alcoholics and drug addicts who don't beat up women.
Yeah.
So it's not an excuse, but they were, unfortunately, he was a drug addict, and I didn't know it. It's something people don't tell you when you meet them.
I just found it interesting when you started talking about that, you said there were signs there, like the slamming of doors, and then you said, and kicking the dog. And I remember reading or hearing once that there was research done in American prisons, and every single serial killer in an American prison started by abusing animals.
Hurting those who are
Weaker,
more vulnerable.
vulnerable.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, a man who beats up a woman, it's not a fair fight. It never will be. So that is, and in my life, I have seen it with my father and with the one who beat me up, that there was a sense of reward for them. They actually enjoyed. At times they enjoyed doing what they did. I saw it, I've seen it with it's a pattern of behavior that works for them. And it's a pattern of behavior that they use through their life. And they're very seldom challenged on it.
You may not be able to answer this question, but having been there, you may be able to. So I'm going to ask it in any case. What reward would a person get out of beating somebody who is less vulnerable?
They get some form of satisfaction, whatever it may be. Some form of release, perhaps?
I just see it as cowardice.
Well, we do. As healthy people, we do, because that's exactly what it is. It's bullying. It's bullying others. It's breaking and destroying other people to possibly gain your own strength.
How did you then, you've already said when you face problems, you move through them. How did you move through this and gain strength again?
That has been a long process, and I think that's why people say, well, why has it taken you so long to tell your story, or why do people come out after 20 years and talk about them being raped? It's because we don't just get over it, and we have to get through it. talk you through what actually happened. So my instinct at the time was to lay charges against the perpetrator and to go to court, not for a minute foreseeing what lay ahead of me. I thought it was a simple process. I thought I had a restraining order, I had the bruises to show, I had a house that had been wrecked, a car that had been destroyed. I thought it was going to be simple, cut and dried. I'm going to go to court, this is what happened, and this is how it works. It doesn't work like that. So I completely underestimated what lay ahead of me. And then, of course, there was a point where I couldn't walk away. I had to see it through. So I went through a court case that took almost 3 years. So which means that you can never quite get over it. Every 6 months you're back in court, or 3 months, or however long it is. So you're never able to really walk away from the story. Then you're dealing with that. And then only afterwards do you start, over the years, beginning to accept what really happened to you. Because the question I asked all the way through the court case and for years afterwards is why? Why did you do it to me? What was it about me that was so worthless that you could do that to me? Why? And eventually I've had to accept that there really isn't a why. There isn't an answer to the question except because he could, because he was allowed to. So it was a long process. It really has taken years. And in fact, it's not something I'm ever going to get over. And still, even now when I sit here and I talk to you, I can never talk loudly about violence. I need to talk, I need to contain it, I need to manage it, even in conversation. So it's something that I'll never get over.
Did you at some stage think it was because you were worthless?
No, there's always a part of me, and I think that's where the resilience comes in. There's always a part of me that knew I didn't deserve it. And I think that's why I went to court, and that's why I took action, is because I knew deep inside that I didn't deserve this. And nobody deserves it. Nobody deserves it. It doesn't matter what you do or didn't do.
Okay, then I come back to the original question. How did you move through this, and how did you gain your strength? Where
didn't answer the question.
No, that's fine, because a whole lot of other stuff came out there. But at what stage did you start seeing a rise in?
Well, look, immediately afterwards, my career took an absolute dive. I mean, nobody would touch me. I'd been negotiating to read the main evening news when I hate to say it, but when the SABC still had viewers, for millions of viewers. They still have viewers. But it was a time where everything was quite robust, at the SABC. And I'd been negotiating to be the evening newsreader. And of course that fell through. I mean, they even said to me, we can't touch you. So it took years for my career to pick up again. It was actually only when the perpetrator skipped the country in the middle of the court case that sentiment really changed, and I started getting calls and I started getting work again. But the emotional picking up the pieces of your life is a long process. So I can't really answer that question, because I think I'm still on the journey. I'm still healing. I still get triggered. I still feel vulnerable if I'm next to a man. Is he going to hit me? Is he going to shove my head through the window? So I don't think that ever goes away. So it'll be an ongoing journey.
How do you then, if you're still busy with this journey and you have these fears around you, how do you then establish a relationship with another person? Because I know you are in
happily married for many years.
Yeah. How did you overcome that fear to take that step forward?
How did I learn to trust? Again, I think that I've always known that I'd had a few bad examples in my life. I mean, my father is the first male that he's my role model, and Harry is this violent man. But then you always know, you look around, you see what's happening around you, and you know it's not right, and you know that not all men are like that. So I think one of the biggest things after what happened to me was I had to learn to trust my own inner voice, because there was a time where I heard him screaming at his ex-girlfriend on the phone, and he told her to F off and to leave him alone, and he put the phone down, and I said to him, "You won't speak to me like that, would you?" And he said, "No, you'll never deserve it." And I mean, at the time I believed it. I thought, no, I'll never deserve it. But of course, one day I would. He was going to make jolly sure that I did. And I've actually lost my train of thought. What was your question?
About establishing a relationship with another male partner.
So that was one of I ignored my inner instinct. I didn't trust my own thought process. I accepted what he said to me. So I had to learn to trust myself again. I think that was the biggest thing. It wasn't trusting other people. It was trusting my own inner voice.
So once again, it comes back to you. It comes back to the individual. It's not looking at the other person.
Yeah, because I questioned him. In my own mind, I questioned, like, why did you do this to me? But then I also had to look inward, and I had to say, well, why did I allow this to happen to me? I was empowered. He was in my home. I owed him nothing. So why did I allow something like this? I wasn't married to him. I didn't have children with him. Those are circumstances that other women face. And those are very real in trying to extricate yourself from an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that. So, so I had to look inward as well, which is not nice.
Okay, but now look inward now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like what you see?
Myself?
Yes.
I'm happy. I think so.
Are you strong within yourself?
I am. And I think now, as the person I am today, if that had happened to me now, I would have, done things differently. I wouldn't have been...
It's exactly the next question I was going to ask you.
There's not much I would have done differently, but I think I would have gone into the courtroom and not allowed my voice to be taken away from me. Unfortunately, in a situation like that, the perpetrator is going to bring out the big lawyers. They're going to bring out the noise. They're going to do anything to keep themselves out of jail, and it doesn't matter what they do to you in the process. So, you're going to be destroyed in the courtroom as a woman. It is going to happen. You're going to be tried. They're going to try and paint a picture of you as hysterical, volatile, hostile, and they silenced me. And I don't think I would ever allow that to happen again. And that's probably why I wrote the book, expecting to be heard. Whereas I expected to be heard when I went into the court system, and I wasn't. So it's taken me 20 years to find my voice, to be heard.
Well, I'm very glad you found your voice. It's nice to hear it again. And lovely to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking time out to join us, Tracey.
Hot 91.9.
Playing the best old school and R&B.